We all know that waking up after a bad night's sleep can impact your day and have you reaching for that extra coffee. But a new study says a lack of shut-eye could have longer lasting effect. We're joined by Dr. Joe Kostorich. Now, Dr. Joe, what impact does sleep have on our health and well-being?
Yes, sleep, good afternoon, Jerry, has major impacts on all aspects of our health, in fact. And when you think about it, it sounds obvious to say it, but we spend more of our life asleep than anything else we do in life. We're going to be asleep for a third of our lives, and even though Bon Jovi said, I'll sleep when I'm dead, doesn't really work that way. So we know that a lack of sleep impacts our mental health, and there's higher rates of depression and anxiety. We know that it can also impact physical health, and aside from the obvious that we feel tired, there's higher rates of type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure and heart disease. Now, it's not a direct cause and effect that's been worked out. This new work, interestingly, shows that more subtly, people just don't feel as good, and they feel less positive, and they're more likely to make mistakes, which again, probably makes some intuitive sense.
Yes. Well, this study has proven even just 2 hours less sleep can make a huge difference. So how much sleep should we be getting?
It is dependent on the individual. Most people are going to need 8 hours. Now, often people will say, I get between 7 and 8 hours. Well, if you need 8 and you get 7, by the end of the week, you're 7 hours sleep in arrears. So it's a whole night's sleep in arrears.
Right.
You've got to be guided by your body. But most people, they are going to need 8. Some might need 8.5. Some people, maybe 7 or 7.5 is going to be sufficient. You hear people say, I get away with 5 or 6. And I think the get away is saying, well, I know it's not really good for me, but I'd do it anyway.
I honestly feel like I need 10. If I don't have an alarm, I just keep going. Is that normal?
It's a bit like, what's normal eye colour, what's normal height. It's what's right for the individual. And sometimes a function of what you do. People who are busier are arguably going to need more sleep. And sometimes it's just different stages of life, where you're at, how your metabolism is. You need to be guided by your body.
Yeah. A lot of people now have smartwatches monitoring their sleep. Can this give people insight into their habits?
Look, it can, but there's an old American saying that says you don't fatten the hog by putting it on the scale. So it does give you information, but of itself, that's really not changing anything. And sometimes people just get so stressed about what their app is telling them that they worry so much that they don't get to sleep. So sure, it can give you some information, but really what you want to be doing is probably throwing the app on the phone somewhere where you can't get to it. It sounds obvious, but having a dark room, switching off screens at least half an hour before you go to bed, maybe listening to some calming music, maybe having a warm shower, maybe some chamomile tea, having a routine, and making sleep a priority. I think that's sometimes where we need to go back to the basics and say, if we make sleep a priority rather than just, it doesn't matter, then that's the first most important step.
I like what you're saying, Dr. Joe. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
You're welcome, Jerry.